Justified in questions, justified in getting answers. Matt Paulmbo and Booker Scott are justified. This is the PB&J podcast.
Welcome into the PB&J podcast. I am Booker Scott alongside Matt Paulmbo. We welcome you here, and we ask that you subscribe to our brand new show. You can go to YouTube, Rumble, or, of course, TalkRed.com. We're so glad you have joined us. As we get started here, let me introduce you to Matt Paulmbo. Matt is the former content director of the Bongino Report. You can also read many of his books. He's written 11 of them. One of them is Spygate that he wrote with Dan Bongino. He has also written books about the Soroses, George Soros in Man Behind the Curtain. His son is The Heir, and that's the name of his latest book, which you can get at Amazon or Barnes and Noble. He also wrote the book, Fact-Checking the Fact-Checkers. You probably know that one as well. In all, he's written 11 books. You may recognize him from Fox News and Newsmax. He's been a contributor and a guest on those quite frequently. And right now, he is with us. And, Matt, let me get you to come on in here and start the conversation here on the PB&J podcast.
Well, I'm now full-time PB&J, which is hopefully going to be entertaining and delicious. With no one watching this understands how many tech support issues we had leading up to this. So we cannot afford to screw anything up.
And let me say a little bit about me too, Matt, so people know who I am. I'm Booker Scott, and I host a radio show on America Out Loud Talk Radio Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 o'clock Pacific. In 2022, I started an organization called SaviorRepublic.org. And every Monday for almost 3 years, Matt and I have done my radio show together, and we have talked about doing this video show for probably at least a year. And for the last 6 months, we were going to get it started. Here we are, and we're ready to get started. Where do we start, Matt?
I don't know. You got any big stories picked out?
No big stories.
We're just going to wing it? Well, I guess...
what about California? You have to.
Well, that's what I was going to propose, because... They have, to say they have third world standards when it comes to counting votes would actually be quite offensive to the third world, which, despite all the many problems there, has figured out how to count elections within a single day, as had most states. But California is one where it takes many, many weeks. And, the simplest explanation is that it is just due to incompetence, and we see that with California with their public work projects, with what it costs them to, build a public toilet. Everything there is twice as much or more. They spend billions of dollars on railroads where you don't get a single mile of railroad. So they're not exactly known for being competent, but it also naturally is going to lead to some questions like, well, it's a little weird that it takes this long to count an election, and then the more votes we count, they overwhelmingly start to help only the Democrats and not the Republicans by any stretch. And even if that's just one big coincidence, it does have a demoralizing effect on Republican voters. And we're seeing that now where with Spencer Pratt, he was in second place. The Indian woman whose name I'm not going to even try to pronounce was in third. Raman?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Oh, I can pronounce that. All right, yeah, never mind. I thought I was going to embarrass myself. I had forgotten it, hence what I was saying that. But Raman, she was in a distant third place. They're somehow, I think, just over halfway done counting the ballots a week down the road, or a few days down the road. And it's looking like she might actually place in second. And she was on stage crying about not advancing on election night. So even she didn't think she was going to advance. So, just not a great system. And that's the thing. Even if there's no fraud involved whatsoever, it's still a horrible system. It's still one that demoralizes the right and counts against us. And it's one that makes a lot of people say, what's even the point of voting? Which is, of course, what they want.
And I think that Donald Trump's comments that he made Friday, I guess, he was in the Wisconsin area doing a town hall. I don't know if you caught that with the John Deere tractors. He was there to talk about the farmers in America, but he mentioned about what was going on in California. I have that clip. Let's play it right here.
They rigged the election. When I turned, the election was totally rigged. It was a rigged election, just like they're rigging the election right now, it looks like in California. Can you imagine? It's 4 days, and they still aren't even close to telling you who won. You know why? Because they're rigging the election, that's why. 4 days. You know, in Spain, they had it like, I'm not a big fan of Spain, to be honest with you. It's gone very far left. But they had an election. All the votes were in, similar size to the state of California, a little larger, actually. And every vote was in by 10 o'clock in the evening and counted. You're going to be waiting weeks to get these votes. It's corrupt. Somebody said it's incompetent. I said, no, just the opposite. It's unbelievably competent if you happen to be a Democrat politician. Because with their policies, the only way they can get elected is to cheat. And when you look at an election, not even relatively a big election, for one state, for one city, for Los Angeles, they're nowhere close to counting the votes. But you look at what's happening, it's getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And the people that were supposed to win, bad things are happening. It's a crooked state. We have crooked third world elections in a lot of our states, and we should pass our Save America Act. Amazing. And that'll really stop it too. That'll stop it. You know, that's where you have voter ID. It's where you have birth of, you know, your citizenship. You have to prove your citizenship. I think that sounds good. And also, you know, I added a couple in there. Also, the ballots, the voting, the mail-in ballots, so crooked. They send millions of ballots out all over the place. If you're a Democrat, sometimes you get 6 or 7. If you're a Republican, you have to call up, where are my ballots? It's such a crooked deal with third world country. But I added 2 things. No men playing in women's sports. And this is like best of. No transgender mutilization surgery on your child, on your children. None.
So Donald Trump says California has cheated, and now we see that Spencer Pratt he's probably going to fall out of second place, and everybody on the right is saying it's fraud, it's fraud. And Donald Trump, you heard he just said that. Steve Hilton was out Friday, and he has a solution for all of this.
This absolute shambles of an election count. It's actually way worse than the president just mentioned. It's not 6 or 7 or 8 days. Here's from the Secretary of State's website today, 35 days. Oh, that's the plan. 35 days. This is an absolute shambles, a humiliation for California. It is making our state a laughing stock here in America and around the world. We have less than 10 million votes cast in this election in California, and it's going to take them a month to count them. India, 640 million. They do it in a day. States here in America, look at Florida, how quickly they get their count out. Within hours, same sort of numbers. They have early voting too. They have mail-in voting too, but they can do it in an hour. Here it takes a month. It is an absolutely inexcusable, calamitous catastrophe of incompetence from the same crew who bought you high-speed rail. Yes. Now it's snail's pace elections. It's not good enough.
And the biggest problem with this, Matt, is that everybody in California gets a mail-in ballot. Yep. Everyone that's registered, there are 23 million Californians that are registered to vote. And when you look at the breakdown of those, let's see, 12 million of them are Democrats. You have about 4.7 million independents, and then Republicans come in third there. That is a big problem as well in California.
I mean, the unfortunate thing is California isn't even a state that would necessarily even need to rig the elections just because of the imbalance in registered Democrats or Republicans. And that, I mean, on election night, the split was such that Spencer Pratt was going to come in second place, but it was still him getting between 30 and 40% of the vote versus 60% or so on the other end. And in national elections, California is basically 60-40 Democrat Republican. So it is in line with those results, which is unfortunate. If Pratt does end up advancing to the next round, you do have to hope there are the voters for ramen, or am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah, that's good enough.
Good enough. All right, ramen noodles lady. You have to hope her supporters don't turn out at all, or half of them go for Pratt. I mean, we just sort of have to pray. Hopefully, they only supported her and her only, and that if they don't turn out at all, that would be very good for Pratt. But the split, right? I mean, the thing is too about elections that take multiple stages that go to runoff is the turnout in the second round is always lower and usually significantly lower than the first round. So that could mean if you're one of the people who voted for a candidate that got knocked off, as opposed to them then voting for Karen Bass, maybe they just don't vote at all. That would, obviously be a very good thing. I'm a bit upset my poly market bet for Spencer Pratt is not paying out, though.
In the governor's race in California, Steve Hilton, it looks like he is going backward in the same direction to third place. And one way to have solved this when Eric Swalwell went out of the race, and you and I talked about it on the radio show, is Chad Bianco also stepping out. If he had stepped out, that probably would have gotten Steve Hilton over the top.
Yeah, and so anyone watching this who doesn't know how California's primary works, it's a jungle primary. So it's not like most states where the Republicans have a primary, the Democrats have a primary, and then any third-party candidates can also try to get on the ballot independent of that. It's all one big primary. So Republicans and Democrats in one primary, and the top two advance. And, Republicans were going to take in maybe 30 or 40% of the vote. But if that's split between two candidates, and then you have 70 or 60% of the vote being split by 10 plus candidates, and in fact, I think there was 60 something governor's candidates, it was actually possible that because you just need a plurality vote, that the top two would have been Republicans, Bianco and Hilton, then no one else can enter the race. So California would have accidentally had a Republican versus Republican governor's race. And I say accidentally because when they designed the jungle primary system, they had assumed it would just always be two Democrats advancing, in which case there's not even a chance of a Republican winning in some crazy scenario. It would always be Democrats. When Eric Swalwell dropped out, he had a decent enough share of the vote that it redistributed to other Democrats to push them ahead of Bianco, in which case it was not going to be Republican versus Republican, which was possible until then. So it actually is unfortunate that we lost Swalwell. I can't believe I'm saying it. I'm happy he's gone, but I just wish, it was a month, maybe this week as opposed to when it happened a few months ago.
I want to talk about Graham Plattner up in Maine and Susan Collins here in a few minutes. But before we leave California, let's go back to 2024. There was an election then when Steve Garvey led every one of the Democrats in the primary. And that was intentional, especially by Adam Schiff, because he spent money to get Steve Garvey elected, at least in that top two in that jungle primary, because he knew that he would beat him in the general election. So sometimes that is a strategy when it comes to Democrats and Republicans in those jungle primaries, because like you said, the Democrats fixed it so that they could rig the election in that way. They didn't think a Republican would ever win the state. It's been 2006 since anyone has won the state of California.
Schwarzenegger, right?
Yeah.
And with Schwarzenegger, too, I believe it was one of those plurality vote situations because there were so many candidates. It's not we're not going to win a straight election, unfortunately. It's just that California has imported many, many millions of people that do not like to vote for us. So
that's right. And until we change the complexion of the registration in California, where there are more Republicans, or at least close to the independents and more than the independents, it's really not going to matter, though, is it, Matt? It's we have an uphill climb in California. But the DOJ, the U.S. Attorney in California, he is out there and investigating some of the things that we've been seeing in California. I think we'll just have to wait and see what they find. I would remind everyone that 18 U.S.C. 611, which has been a law for years and years, a couple of decades, it makes it a felony for an illegal immigrant to vote. Unfortunately, It's only been prosecuted 35 times in 21 years. So typically, nobody really goes and looks to see the illegals. I think all of us could agree that more than 35 illegal immigrants have voted.
It's one of those crimes where it gets ignored, downplayed. If it does happen, they don't prosecute it, and then they don't prosecute it and say, well, it never happens. No one gets prosecuted for it. And I go, well, I mean, the analogy I would give is, and I think Mamdani stopped enforcing laws against jaywalking in New York City. But even when they gave tickets to people for it, it was like a dozen tickets a day for jaywalking in New York City. How many people do we think a day in Manhattan are jaywalking? Is it tens of thousands? Is it hundreds of thousands? It's every single person who lives there has done it probably on a weekly basis. So there are certain crimes where they're just not enforcing them, and then they use that as evidence that the crime is not occurring. On paper, like San Francisco has a very low shoplifting rate on paper because if you're a store owner and you call the cops, nothing's happened. So why would you report it? So it's the same analogy I would give with illegal alien voting, and also too, it's how do you know it's happening? In that, if you were an illegal alien, and I actually know for a fact this has happened. It was a case where an illegal he registered to vote on a college campus. They were having like a booth ahead of an election. He put down his apartment he was renting. He got registered to vote. He voted in a presidential election, and there's no system to cross-reference it. Meaning, it's not like he provided his social security number, which he wouldn't have when he registered to vote. It was just his address. So, if illegals are voting and you're tasked with going through the voter rolls, how do you know unless everything's being provided? Like there would be no way to prove it anyway. So it's, I think, a massively underrepresented crime, and I think actually probably everyone agrees with us. But that's my reasoning behind why it's masked, at least.
Let's go to Maine. Let's go to Susan Collins. Let's go to Graham Plattner. He is all over the news right now, and the Democrats are supporting him. Chuck Schumer, all of these other Democrats, they can't wait to get Graham Plattner into the Senate to help them. And it shows that it's all about power and control. That's what it really shows.
On Graham Plattner, are you satisfied with the explanations he's given for the controversies his campaign has faced right now? Are you concerned about what we've heard?
I met with Graham Plattner today. We're going to beat Susan Collins and take back the Senate.
Yes.
So you're saying that Janet Mills, your preferred candidate, there's been rattlings that she should get back in. You're standing behind Graham Plattner, to be clear here?
We're going to beat Susan Collins and take back the Senate.
Yes.
Well, we have it was a New York Times op-ed out where, the overall summary is he wasn't a very good boyfriend. But one of the, it's not exactly hard-hitting news, but one of the revelations from one of his exes was that he was well aware of what his Nazi tattoo was, and I think anyone that has knowledge of World War II of an 8th grade level would recognize that tattoo. I mean, it was on the hats. It's a concentration guard camp tattoo. Like, it's a very well-known Nazi symbol. So the fact that to think that he would not know what that is until he was running for office is obviously delusional. And it also is a reminder, and everyone already knew this, that the left doesn't really have any true principles. I mean, a lot of politics is just this friend-enemy distinction. So for the past 10 years, they've been, comparing Trump to Hitler and saying, there's this whole discourse for years over, is it acceptable to punch a Nazi? And of course, their answer is yes. And to them, a Nazi is anyone they disagree with on anything. Now they have an actual guy with a Nazi tattoo, and we need to intellectualize it. And, well, it could have been a mistake. I mean, the New York Times said it resembles a Nazi tattoo, and we have to pretend there's doubt over what it is. So he's a horrible candidate. The fact that he's the best guy they could find also says a lot. And Susan Collins, I don't like Susan Collins very much, but I think I've said on the show before, I'd rather have someone who votes with me 50% of the time than 5% of the time. Even though, John Fetterman now has a reputation for no reason whatsoever of being like a center-right Democrat, Susan Collins votes with the right at double or triple the rate he does. So she's probably the best we're going to get from Maine. And in the 2020 election, Trump lost the state by, I think, 5 or so points. She won the state by margin of a couple points. So there are Democrats or independents who lean left that do vote for Susan Collins, which is obviously gives her an edge in that kind of state. And on election day 2020, she was lagging in the polls by more than 10 points against her opponent. Obviously, that poll turned out to be wrong. She's lagging against Plattner by far less in the polls. And for whatever reason, Susan, we've always said the polls are wrong when it comes to Donald Trump's support, and they do tend to underestimate his support in presidential elections by a few points. For Susan Collins, it's a double-digit underestimation usually. So that's, I guess, good news for her.
The Republicans cannot afford to lose Iowa. If they lose Iowa, it is possible for the Republicans to lose control of the Senate.
Yes.
If they win Iowa, I don't think the Democrats can win the control of the Senate, take the gavel in all of the committees in the Senate.
Yeah, that's the thing. Democrats can't take back the Senate without winning a state that Trump won by 10 points. So obviously that's not great in their favor. And then Michigan hasn't been getting discussed quite as much, but they're the leading Democrat in the primary, and he is, I think, 40+% support so far. So it's split between two other people who. So basically, it's pretty much guaranteed for him, at least at this point in time. But El Sayed. But a lot of insiders are sounding the alarm, and that he is a radical. He is the most progressive. Michigan is a swing state, and you have to remember in the last election when Alyssa Slotkin won, so Trump won. I think it was by 80,000 votes against Harris in Michigan. Slotkin underperformed Harris's vote total by 20,000 or so votes. But the Republican Mike Rogers underperformed Trump by 120,000, meaning if every Trump voter, or at least like half of them, voted in the Senate election, they just left it blank. If they just checked the Republican, a Republican would have beat Alyssa Slotkin. So my point being, this is going to be a race. In the last election cycle, it was by like a point or so. It's going to be a very close race. Mike Rogers is running again. And while the turnout probably won't be as high because there's no presidential election, this is the best, the radical progressive guy is the best guy he could run against in terms of his odds. So not only are Democrats not going to hold down key seats they need, in Michigan, they might even lose a seat, hopefully.
We talked about this a lot on the radio show when that happened in 2024, and we have since. And it was really MAGA that went against Mike Rogers because they said he was a deep state guy. Even though Donald Trump had endorsed him, they didn't vote for it. As you mentioned, it's 120,000 raw votes difference for Mike Rogers, and ultimately they elected a deep state person in
the CIA girl. Yep.
Worked for the CIA. So it's kind of crazy. But I think Michigan is one, and Mike Rogers, as you mentioned, is running again. I believe Michigan is one that the Republicans can win and actually flip. Yep. Gary Peters is retiring there in Michigan, and that's what that seat is.
In Iowa, of note, is that their primary was actually the same day as all the other races last week. Yeah. But the progressive guy running was Zach Walz. I actually met him like 10 years ago once, and I was like, wait a second, I know that guy. It was an interesting moment, but he was running as the progressive guy, and he lost 2-1 against the, I would say, supposedly moderate guy. I only say supposedly because anytime a Democrat runs as a moderate, they turn into Mao Zedong the moment they get power. So the on paper moderate guy, I guess, won by 2-1. So I guess voters there are at least smart enough to know if we really want to win, we have to play close to the center, whether or not they believe it.
And that's replacing Joni Ernst, who is also retiring in Iowa, a Republican. There is a Republican who has been endorsed by Donald Trump out there. She is running unopposed.
Yep.
Let's go through this top 10 trending stories over the last, it looks like about 10 days. This came out in the Daily Mail. And if we go all the way back to May, we had the reconciliation was passed, or part of it. And they left the ICE out of it, but that was a $70 billion last part of the government shutdown that started at the beginning of the year that lasted longer than any other. And then over the weekend, they passed the ICE portion of it, which funds ICE for 3 years. They tried to put the SAVE Act into that.
Yeah, it didn't go well.
Yeah.
It was 4 Republicans voted against it. It was Tillis, Murkowski, Collins, who I guess I apologize for sort of defending 5 minutes ago. And then McConnell, which I mean, I know he's a rhino, but even on this issue, I was kind of surprised. I just don't know what the reasoning is supposed to be. I heard Murkowski try to claim it could disenfranchise her constituency, and I'm thinking, who? Who within your constituency is being disenfranchised? Like, I want. There's never any actual evidence provided for the claims of disenfranchisement. I mean, the case that it would disenfranchise people is it would disenfranchise people who should not be legally allowed to vote anyway. So I guess I'm for that kind of disenfranchisement, but I've never seen it actually substantiated that it's going to hurt people from voting who like the hysteria is such that liberals are claiming that married women won't be able to vote because they've changed their last names. Like, they're just getting desperate and throwing excuses. The whole, it's going to stop black people from voting thing, I guess, didn't pan out. So now they're trying to fearmonger with married women. And I'm sure we'll be learning that you and I won't be able to vote next week if that talking point doesn't work. But yeah, it's sad to see. I mean, there really is no path forward for it now.
Let me throw in a couple of more Republican Senate names that could be a problem as we move forward until next year when the 120th Congress comes in. That's Bill Cassidy in Louisiana, John Cornyn in Texas. I don't think they're going to make it easy for Donald Trump the rest of the way through the end of January, or the beginning of January, I guess, is when the 120th would come in. So that passed. The SAVE Act was creative anyway in the way that they tried to do it. Because of the Byrd rule, you would think that you cannot attach an amendment like the SAVE Act, but if you attach money to the SAVE Act, then you can add it to a reconciliation, which is what they tried to do. They kind of stripped down that SAVE Act a little bit in what they finally tried to pass, but it was a couple of votes short, so it's gone away. You can say goodbye to that. Also, within the last 10 days, I didn't even know this, Matt. I've been buried so deep. Did you see what happened in the ISS up in space there? In 24 hours, this became a huge story, and it was over before I even knew it was a story.
You're telling me now for the first time.
Really?
Yes.
Well, there was
it's out of my jurisdiction.
Well, there was a problem. There was a problem up on the International Space Station, and they thought they were going to have to bring the astronauts in. And they decided they weren't going to have to. It was something about an air leak or something. So that was one of those stories that came and went in about a 24-hour period that I didn't even see when it was happening. Something else is, what about the screwworm? Have you heard about the screwworm that is now in Texas? And do you know what that is even?
Well, I'm trying to deploy the same strategy I did with the hantavirus, is just pretend it's no big deal and ignore it until it goes away. And I'm not going to lie, I think it worked. When's the last time we heard about the hantavirus? Never. I have not. So I manifested this thing going away forever. You're welcome. So I'm doing the same thing with this screwworm thing. Doesn't exist. Don't care. Yeah. I don't believe it.
Well, screwworm has existed in Central and South America, and that's one of the reasons why our beef is so expensive in our groceries, because that's what it affects. It affects cattle. I guess there is
Not
one
anymore.
cow. Yeah, well, okay. Thank you, Matt.
No problem. Solved it.
There is one cow running around somewhere in Texas with screwworm, so they're keeping all the cows away from that. And that's the gist of that story. What else? Let's see. There was a Sherpa survived 6 days on Everest. Did you know anything about that?
I mean, they're basically the guides who help people risk their life for no reason.
Well, okay, if you say so.
That's my understanding of their job. I don't know. I could never. I can't imagine climbing Mount Everest ever being something I'd want to do. Although I guess I'm built different from. I don't know. It's not like I would ever even be athletically able to anyway, so I don't know what I'm talking about.
Putin rejects peace talks with Zelensky in Ukraine, but to me, that's been in the news every day for the last 3 or 4 years. So
that in Iran, it's evergreen.
Why is that a trending story over the last 10 days?
And it's. I mean, I will admit, I actually did think the conflict would be resolved relatively quickly with Trump in power. Only in that Trump had been very good at preventing Russian encroachment on Ukraine while he was in office. I mean, I think everyone knows the timeline that at no point was he in office in his first term had Russia encroached on Ukraine's territory. Obviously, they took Crimea under Obama. They attacked Ukraine under Biden. And Putin himself said they would not have attacked Ukraine with Trump in power. However, undoing something that's already going on is a different story. And I was very optimistic at first. It's just not exactly clear what the end goal is supposed to be here. I mean, I think Putin's going to say we want to take the Russian enclaves within Ukraine, but if you give them territory, it also does send a message that if you do invade, we are going to make concessions that give you territory. So
if you can just manifest diseases, where were you during COVID?
I didn't start my disease manifesting career until after.
Well, what about Ebola?
Ebola? No more.
Story.
No more.
It's a trending story back on May 31st. You think Ebola is a problem, or can you just manifest it away?
Well, in 2013, that's when it was the only thing CNN would talk about for a full year. If I remember, 2013 or 2014, CNN used to do that. I mean, I don't watch CNN, but having this background noise in public places, they would always hyper-fixate like on one story per year. So there's 1 year the only story was that missing Malaysian airline, and that's the only thing they would talk about. I swear to God, there was the whole Ebola year. That's the only thing they talked about. But I think the death toll was in the double digits, if I'm not remembering incorrectly. Yeah. So it's relative to COVID, which had killed millions. It's not that big a deal.
This Ebola thing right now is in the Congo. The Republic of Congo. That's where
they got bigger problems there.
They have all kinds of problems, but it's not our problem. Yeah. But in a lot of ways, it sounds like they are trying to do the same thing with this as they did with COVID. It isn't, and I think there are 178 people totally infected.
It's nothing
in the Congo, and it's gone to one other country, maybe Uganda is what I'm thinking, but I don't believe it's a big deal. It has killed about 20 people so far.
Yeah, I mean, malaria is probably still a million times bigger there than
I would think so.
Like this. Yeah.
So that also was trending in the last 10 days. Another one, protesters on the Golden Gate Bridge. That was on June 4th. When that happened, I missed that as well. I completely missed June 4th. Did you know that was going on?
No, what were they protesting?
I have no idea, but they protest something all the time on the Golden Gate Bridge. What does it matter? I completely missed it. It doesn't matter. It's they chain each other together.
So those people, they need to be put in jail or something. I don't know, if you're blocking traffic, and I don't care what the cause, even if the cause is something I agree with, you still have to go to jail for blocking traffic. It's not okay. I feel like too that protests lose power when there's one every day over anything. Like when you can organize 10,000 people over nothing.
Yeah,
it's just I don't know. If I'm a guy in power, I'm just going to not care when there's a real protest.
What about the protests erupting in Albania?
There's a lot going on there. That's why.
Hang on just a minute, Matt. We have a top 10 trending stories here.
Yes,
this is the past 10 days and. These are big stories that are happening. Protest in Albania, June 6th. Matt doesn't know anything about anything on this list except for this one. And
my neck of the woods. I've done some work there in the past.
And people watching this for the first time, they don't know that on our radio show or my radio show that you come on every Monday night for the last 3 years, that you actually wrote a book with the former prime minister of Albania. And it's not yet released yet. You're still working on it, but you've been working on it for well over a year. You've taken trips over that. And I sent this to you last night, and I said, look here, Albania, they're trending in the news story on June 6th. And he says, well, I know about that. I can tell you all about it. And so please, now, on one news story here trending over the last 10 days, we came across something that Matt can really and truly know a lot about because he is an expert in Albania.
Oh, yeah. Well, the country is very open to foreign investment, and it's overwhelmingly pro-American in their views. Like, if you look up on Pew Research or any site that polls on this, they're very pro-America. It's one of the few countries where Trump in Europe actually has a positive approval rating. And you have to keep in mind in Europe, like all American news in Europe is a copy and paste of left-wing news in America. So that's all they hear is our left wing. But it's one of, I think, only 3 or 4 on net balance pro-Trump countries. But anyway, they're very upset about Jared Kushner project on the coast there. And it's because they are going to be repurposing public land, a public beach, into a private resort, and it's rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And the socialist government there, which it's a uniparty state there. Almost every municipality, actually every single municipality except one, has a socialist mayor, a socialist legislature. Their equivalent of the federal government is almost 2/3 socialist and a social democratic party. And they're siphoning off public land for private use. People are not happy with it. And that's just the main reason for the protest. Their rallying cry is Albania is not for sale, and that's I guess the overall summary. That being said, they're perfectly fine with foreign investment in their country. It's just the way it's been done. And then the Socialist Party too has waived a lot of like environmental review and all these other regulatory steps that are supposed to be in place. And people are probably wondering, like, isn't that a little weird that a socialist far left government is going to privatize public land and then also bypass environmental review to help billionaire investors? And it's an insanely corrupt party. Almost, I mean, you can look up any single person in their government in the Socialist Party, and there's some sort of corruption scandal. Their Prime Minister, Eddie Rama, is accused of being tied to drug trafficking organizations. So they're much actually less ideologically socialist than you'd think, but they are an insanely corrupt party.
Let's bring it back here to America for a few minutes, and let's talk about Iran. We always have to talk about Iran and the things that are going on there. Donald Trump says, well, maybe we're going to leave any minute. Here is that video.
Why the midterms are coming up, and I hope you people are really spiritized, because we're at a point we're going to come out of Iran very quickly, and it's going to be very strong, one way or the other, whether it's a piece of paper or the very tough way, okay? The very tough way is maybe the easier way, but we're going to come out, and your fertilizer prices are going to go way down, just like they were 4 months ago. Your fertilizer's down, your energy's down, your oil, your gas is all coming way down. And frankly, I thought it would go much higher than it did. I thought, frankly, that gasoline would be much higher than it was. I was in Iowa, another place I like a lot, and it was just before we started the excursion to Iran, and we passed gas stations. It was $1.85 a gallon. And we're going to get them down to those numbers again very quickly.
So as Donald Trump looks for a way out of this, do you think he's going to find it? And the people at home, from what I'm hearing, there's a lot of frustration growing. And although I have noticed that gas is down $1, and we should talk about another one that is here on this list, and that's an incredible jobs story that came out from the month of May, I guess. It was May jobs report.
Yeah, it was the best. It blew past expectations. Then my stock's going 4%. What the hell's going on here?
172,000 jobs
got murdered.
Created. Yeah, and they also adjusted March and April up.
Yes, yeah, I saw that. Well, that's the thing. The economy, I mean, despite all the reasons we were told it would start tanking, whether it be tariffs or involvement in Iran and a ripple effect from rising gas prices, they at least have not panned out, which is good. When it comes to Iran, I mean, listen, the time frame we started with was 6 to 8 weeks. We've blown past that. I would be fine with us just pulling out and pretending it never happened at all at this point. Obviously, it doesn't look great for the country, though, if you do that, and it kind of leads to the question of what was the point in the first place. But I just want this to desperately be over at this point. It seems like a major blunder. It's cost Trump a lot of support from his own side, and then also the rising gas prices are not going to help us in midterms, to put it mildly. So,
well, my gas is down $1 in the last couple of weeks.
That's good.
I'm back down to $3.70. What are you up in New Jersey?
Four-ish, $3.94. Yeah.
Hang on a minute here, Matt. Let's tell everybody I'm in Tampa Bay, Florida, and you are in New Jersey. Where are you in New Jersey?
Morris County, so northern.
Okay, yeah. Close to New York, I guess. Yeah. So if you're from New Jersey, are you keeping up with the New York Knicks? They are in the finals against the Spurs.
I'm so out of the loop on sports, I don't even know how to form an opinion.
Why do you think I asked the question?
you know, I have no idea. I don't get. People treat sports like it's politics. They have like these. It's like nationalism for people who aren't into politics almost. I don't know. It's I just don't know how to develop a strong opinion about a sports team at this point in my life.
Well, you should if you're that close to New York Knicks.
Go Yankees.
Okay, well there you go.
Sure.
As well. Let's stay here in America because we have this midterm coming up, and you and I talk about it a lot on the radio show, and it's scary the way I look at it. It looks to me that the Republicans right now, if you put a gun to my head and I had to predict it, I would say in the House they would lose about 25 seats. That would be normal in a midterm general election. And the Senate, I think, is going to be hard for the Democrats to take. We talked about Susan Collins earlier. If she wins, the Democrats probably are not going to win the Senate, which is very important. A lot of people don't even consider that with that comes the gavel, which means you control things that get to the floor to get a vote on, which I know a lot of people on the right say the Senate is not voting for anything anyway, so it doesn't matter. But it does matter with committees, and it does matter with confirmations and appointments. And I know a lot of people say, well, they're not confirming anybody that Donald Trump's put forward. And I did some research on this, Matt. What would you think that this 119th Senate has done in confirmations for Donald Trump compared to the first year in Biden?
I know for a lot of his ambassador nominations, they were tacking it on to other legislation or making it parts of other votes. So like they can confirm like hundreds at once. So when it comes to individually confirming people, I would assume nothing beyond his cabinet, but maybe hundreds if you were to put, factor in the people they kind of backdoored through.
Well, in reality, here are the facts. The John Thune Senate has confirmed 358 of Donald Trump's appointments, which is 3 more than Biden's Democrat Senate had done for him. When it came to the cabinet, John Thune's Republican Senate did 22 cabinet members in the same amount of time that the Democrats for Joe Biden did 21. So a lot of times I see people say, let's do recess appointments so Trump can get some of his appointments. And then they say, well, what about the judges? Well, there has to be vacancies before you can appoint somebody. And right now, there are about 15 Article 3 federal judges that are going through the process to be confirmed that Trump has appointed. There are an additional 30 that have not been appointed yet. So there's some work there for Donald Trump and his administration to do. There was a rumor about Susie Wiles and that she was quitting. I saw this come out on true. It is not true, according to Susie Wiles. Where did that come from? Do you know?
Probably just X, I'm assuming. It's where it's like X is where the sauce is just made nowadays.
But there's not a lot of truth on X, is there?
Only on Truth Social.
Yeah, only on Truth.
We deserve a royalty for that comment.
Yeah. It's hard to discern, isn't it? What is and what isn't truth? It's hard to tell. Yep. This is the first show of the PB&J podcast. Let me tell you where we got that name, and Matt, let's explain.
Well, we were trying to come up with a cool acronym, and then we came up with PB&J, and then spent a month working backwards on how do we justify this being a title. So like, we got Paulmbo, we got Booker. What's up? I remember I was asking ChatGPT, I'm like, list 500 words beginning with J.